Hi guys, Happy New Year. Do you know what I love? I love that time period between Christmas and New Year's Eve where it feels like the whole world is just vacation world, right? You can lay around in your pajamas all day long. You don't have responsibilities for Christmas anymore. I love that time period. I actually started a new book with my son over the last couple of weeks. He's 9 years old, and we started reading The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. It's one of the Chronicles of Narnia books. Have you read it? The neat thing about the Chronicles of Narnia is C.S. Lewis takes the true story from the Bible of God and his people, but he turns it into a fantasy story for children in the land of Narnia. In The Magician's Nephew, he tells the story of the creation of Narnia. And I wanted to read a little bit of this to you. This is from the chapter called The Fight at the Lamppost. And it's the beginning of Narnia. They show up at the land of Narnia and it's just completely black. There is nothing. And this is what he says. And really, it was uncommonly like nothing. There were no stars. It was so dark that they couldn't see one another at all, and it made no difference whether you kept your eyes shut or opened. Under their feet there was a cool, flat something, which might have been the earth and was certainly not grass or wood. The air was cold and dry, and there was no wind. In the darkness, something was happening at last. A voice had begun to sing. It was very far away, and Diggory found it hard to decide from which direction it was coming. Sometimes it seemed to come from all directions at once. Sometimes he almost thought it was coming out of the earth beneath them. Its lower notes were deep enough to be the voice of the earth herself. There were no words. There was hardly even a tune, but it was, beyond comparison, the most beautiful noise he had ever heard. It was so beautiful, he could hardly bear it. Then, two wonders happened at the same moment. One was that the voice was suddenly joined by other voices, more voices than you could possibly count. They were in harmony with it, but far higher up on the scale, cold, tingling, silvery voices. The second wonder was that the blackness overhead all at once was blazing with stars. They didn't come out gently, one by one, as they do on a summer evening. One moment there had been nothing but darkness. Next moment, 1,000 points of light leaped out. Single stars, constellations, and planets, brighter and bigger than any in our world. There were no clouds. The new stars and the new voices began at exactly the same time. If you had seen and heard it as Diggory did, you would have felt quite certain that it was the stars themselves which were singing, and that it was the first voice, the deep one, which had made them appear and made them sing. It was a lion, huge, shaggy, and bright. It stood facing the risen sun. Its mouth was wide open in song, and it was about 300 yards away. The lion was pacing to and fro about that empty land and singing his new song. It was softer and more lilting than the song by which he had called up the stars and the sun, a gentle, rippling music. And as he walked and sang, the valley grew green with grass. It spread out from the lion like a pool. It ran up the sides of the little hills like a wave. In a few minutes, it was creeping up the lower slopes of the distant mountains, making that young world every moment softer. The light wind could now be heard ruffling the grass. Soon there were other things besides grass. The higher slopes grew dark with heather. Patches of rougher and more bristling green appeared in the valley. Diggory did not know what they were until one began coming up quite close to him. It was a little spiky thing that threw out dozens of arms and covered these arms with green and grew larger at the rate of about an inch every 2 seconds. There were dozens of these things all around him now. When they were nearly as tall as himself, he saw what they were. "Trees!" he exclaimed. And as Aslan the lion went on creating the world with song, he said at the end, "Narnia, Narnia, Narnia, awake, love, think, speak. Be walking trees, be talking beasts, be divine waters." And that, with some skipping around, I admit, is the story of the creation of Narnia. Aslan, who represents God in the stories of Narnia, brought Narnia about through singing. I know C.S. Lewis wrote Narnia to be a fantastical version of our true world and our true God, but it's not that far-fetched because we have a God who sings. Zephaniah 3:17, one of my favorite verses, says in the NIV, it says, "The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing." I used to dream of having a young suitor, so to speak, come and serenade me from beneath my window growing up. I actually had a window that would have been perfect for it, but I never had a singer. I was never serenaded. But can you imagine being serenaded by God himself? His voice singing? I can't even comprehend it. I know we can't even comprehend it, but I know that it would be one of those voices that absolutely brings tears to your eyes. Imagine if God created the world with singing, the world joins in that singing. That's what the world was meant to do, to join in singing with God. It says in Psalm 95, verse 1, "Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song." Did you know God created us to sing along with him? Singing is one of the main ways that God has created us to worship him, whether you have a beautiful voice or not. But we are meant to sing along with him. You can sing in dissonance with something. Aslan could have been singing as he created the world, and Diggory and the other characters could have begun singing the opposite song, a dissonant song, and could have created something terrible and ugly. And that's what it's like when we try to follow our own path and go a different way from the way that God has created for us. But when we turn to him and join in his song in harmony with him, singing along with him, that is the way we were meant to be. And that is why God sent us Jesus, to enable us to sing along with God, to sing the same song as him, to join him in singing instead of trying to create our own song in dissonance, in ugliness, apart from God. Thanks, guys. This has been your Tuesday Talk. I hope you have a great day.